Welcome everyone to the CINA Distinguished Speaker Series. I'm Jim Jones, the Director of CINA. CINA is the DHS Center of Excellence for Criminal Investigations and Network Analysis based at George Mason University in Virginia. A gentle reminder to please mute your microphones during the talk if you are connecting via Zoom. The talk is also being streamed live via YouTube. Please feel free to type questions in the Zoom chat at any time or send us email at cina@gmu.edu, and we will have a Q&A session at the end of the talk. Two final notes before we begin. Our Distinguished Speaker Series will resume in the new year, and the CINA annual RFP for project proposals will be released on December 16th, so keep an eye out for that. Details, videos of past talks, events, and other information and resources are available at the CINA website, cina.gmu.edu. It is now my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker for today, Joe Wheatley. Joe is the Senior Corporate Counsel for Amazon's Counterfeit Crimes Unit. Joe previously spent over 15 years at the U.S. Department of Justice, where he focused on gangs, organized crime, cyber, and technological cases and issues, among a number of other things. Joe, we're very excited to have you with us. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Very good. Well, thank you for having me. Really appreciate this opportunity. I got to meet Jim and some of the other members of your center at a recent hackathon, actually, which will be part of my discussion today in the talk about Amazon Counterfeit Crimes Unit and how we work with brands and law enforcement and also associations and academia to bring counterfeiters to justice, hold them accountable. I'm going to start with some slides and walk through what our team is, what we do, who we work with, how we try to work together with the law enforcement and brands to make this all happen, and then open the floor up for questions and discussions. One administrative question, Jim, I'm getting notices on my screen to admit people who are looking to join the call.
Yep, we will take care of those, Joe. That's okay. Because you're a screen sharing co-host.
Okay,
yep.
Not a problem. Just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to share my screen and start with the slides here. All right, so this is the Counterfeit Crimes Unit that I'll be talking about today. As I'll talk more in the coming minutes, we are a team spread across 7 countries that Amazon has established to pursue counterfeiters wherever we find them, working through the civil and criminal law process. We work with brands and law enforcement closely, cooperatively, impactfully, as early as we possibly can in the life cycle of a case, all the way up through the end of it. And we don't stop once we find 1 or 2 people. We continue to iterate and pursue them up the supply chain into the manufacturing process and hopefully to the very source of the counterfeiters and the counterfeit products, wherever they may be. Now, I'm starting out with a slide here listing some of Amazon's major brand protection tools, services that are available. And the reason I start with that is because they predated the creation of my team, in some cases by several years. They are our proactive and technologically driven controls, AI, machine learning, constantly looking at the Amazon store for bad listings, for bad actors to enforce against. And they do an outstanding job and robustly and constantly, day in, day out, stop bad actors and listings from reaching our customers. And what we found, though, with our senior leadership was that there wasn't necessarily a human, people-to-people external enforcement team component to all this, meaning that we had outstanding proactive controls and they continuously search for and shut down bad actors and bad listings, but we didn't have someone to work with the external, brand partners, external law enforcement to then action even further. There were one-offs and smaller instances. There surely were with Amazon working with partners and brands, law enforcement, but there wasn't a dedicated team up to that point. And so we were created in June of 2020 to serve as that human element, that external enforcement team for partners in the brand and law enforcement space to bring these cases to fruition and bring the bad actors to justice, to hold them accountable. So we now complement in sort of one large space all of Amazon's existing controls to continue to do such a great job. They are essential partners in what we do. Brand Registry, Project Zero, and transparency. Brand Registry is sort of the nerve center of so much of what Amazon does for brand protection. As we announce yearly in our brand protection report, it is a place where rights holders, right, the owners of that mark, whether or with respect to copyright or trademark or patents, to register, their IP with Amazon so that our automated brand protection tools can help protect their IP. Now, Project Zero builds off of that in that it gives the rights holder the ability, provided they're enrolled in Project Zero, to pull listings if they find something that is infringing. Now, transparency is also part of this sort of space, and it relates to scannable codes that mark every single unit that anyone with an app, whether it's the Amazon Store app or the Transparency app, can scan that code to determine its authenticity. And that can be then scanned at any point, in the supply chain. Someone sees it at a store, they can scan it. Someone buys it, they can scan it. A rights holder, if they see it, they can scan it. And so those all continue to exist in the midst of what we do as CCU for the Counterfeit Crimes Unit. Now here I'm going to show you a docuseries that our team put together relating to one of our investigations, working with a brand, working with law enforcement. It's now a public video. It's available on YouTube. And we like to show it to the public, to brands, to law enforcement, so they see this is what Amazon does, what we'll do to help protect customers, to protect brands, to the general public from counterfeit goods. And it's just one example of the many cases we do, in the US and in other countries.
Our Counterfeit Crimes Unit is an international team. We've identified bad actors who attempt to sell counterfeits on the Amazon store. We are aggressively working with law enforcement to pursue these bad actors, to work upstream and disrupt and dismantle the criminal organizations and syndicates that support those counterfeiters.
So we're here today with HSI and the LA Sheriff's Department to do a search warrant. Part of our unit's mission is to bring justice, and so that's why we're here today.
So if you go over to the targets today, be aware does have a Glock 40 registered to him, so it could be at the residence. Sheriff's Department, search warrant. Sheriff's Department! Hands up. All right, anybody else in the house? Okay. You have any computers, paperwork? It's all in your office? Okay. All right, go ahead and let's go walk over there.
People that are on the Counterfeit Crimes Unit have an experience in law enforcement. And I think that's very beneficial because we know how to navigate and identify information that we think law enforcement will need once we refer bad actors to them.
Sheriff's Department, search warrant. Search Department, search warrant.
Police search warrant. Anybody here?
Police!
So this is about 6 months of hard work from the Amazon side. To see it in person today is absolutely rewarding.
Counterfeiting has got to be one of the oldest crimes in the book. I worked as a career prosecutor for 19 years, and I pursued counterfeiters. And oftentimes they were affiliated with other more nefarious bad actors, whether it's human traffickers, identity fraudsters, money launderers. It's an international problem. It's a global problem. It's a problem that law enforcement alone can't solve. It's a problem that brands alone can't solve. And it's a problem that Amazon alone can't solve. So we work collectively with all of those parties to ensure that we're going after them at scale.
Right. So our mission is quite broad. It's to bring global counterfeiters to justice wherever we may find them. And so we divide our tools to do so into two general columns, right? One is the criminal justice system, criminal law, working with law enforcement, building a criminal investigation using data that we have, information we've gathered, partnering with brands, if at all possible, to jointly refer this matter to law enforcement. And that's on the state, local, federal, foreign level. Our law enforcement partners are all over the place, and we see it as our mission to bring that information to them so that they can investigate, and if appropriate, take action by their law enforcement authorities. Now, our other pillar is the civil process, civil law through the courts, partnering again, preferably jointly with brands to bring suits, to sue the bad actors ourselves, in joint suits with the brands to, again, hold them accountable, bring them before the courts, hold them responsible, and get judgments against the bad actors to make Amazon and the victim brands whole again. Now, we were created in 2020, in June. It is part of Amazon's larger efforts to stop bad actors from bringing counterfeits into the store and trying to use the store to sell those. So we do not want that to happen. We want to hold them responsible, protect our customers, protect brands and the general public, wherever they may be. Now, our work has generated quite a bit of news coverage, primarily on the civil side. And the reason for that is that when there's a criminal matter, we only announce it when our role in providing that information has reached a point where law enforcement and our partner brand is comfortable announcing it. And that's because if there is sensitivity or some sort of confidentiality relating to criminal investigation, we do not want to do anything that could complicate the law enforcement interests in pursuing bad actors and holding them responsible. So when something is announced for a criminal matter that we've assisted with, that we've supported, that's because it's reached that point where it can be announced, and law enforcement is at a stage where it's likely not to complicate their investigation in any way. By comparison, our lawsuits are filed by us, largely working with partner brands. And so we have far more control over the cadence, the scheduling, the timing of those filings. And so there's likely also quite a bit more attention because of the volume here as well. Now, our volume of suits has gotten to be quite large, as I'll describe more in the coming pages. Now, our team makeup is very varied. I break it down into two sort of large groupings. You have, dedicated, Amazon employees who are brand protection experts, analysts, data people, engineers, real top of their game, brilliant data people, wizards with data. And then the other column, the other grouping, is people that come from largely from law enforcement, from outside of Amazon. And that was the idea, that you marry together Amazon's in-house data experts and brand protection specialists with people who have experience pursuing bad actors in a prior job. People that come from Homeland Security or the Justice Department, like myself, for instance, people that came from the FBI or DOD, the FDA, any other number of government agencies as well. Marry them together to create a team that is able to grasp the large amounts of data we have, make sense of it, marry it together with other information we gather through our investigation, and package it in a way that it can be provided to law enforcement and actioned on to get real results. We're not in the business of just creating a referral and just sending it on. We want it to reach all the way up through conviction as appropriate, and we will support that referral as far as it goes. Now, our partnerships, I like to break down into sort of 3 pillars, and that's how I'm going to approach some of the examples in my following slides. First, I want to talk with all of you about brands and how we partner with brands to work together through the civil process. Now, the brands also, though, in some instances, may choose to work with us likewise on criminal referrals, right? And where I refer to criminal referrals in the following slides, that's because those matters have gotten to a point where our support of law enforcement can be disclosed, right? But barring that, I'll just then be focusing on the civil litigation. Now, the second part I want to talk about is our partnerships and work with law enforcement, right? We see it as important for us to work with law enforcement wherever we may find them, because bad actors do not acknowledge borders. They can operate in any number of places, move freely. They may have syndicates and networks, clusters that operate across multiple borders. And so we then also work with law enforcement across various borders. Now, on the federal level, Homeland Security is a primary and vital partner of us through their field offices and their national, IPR center, which is an interagency group based near Amazon's offices in Arlington, Virginia. Likewise, we work frequently with the Department of Justice and prosecutors and various agents from the federal law enforcement agencies that partner with them. Likewise, PIPCU, the Police Intellectual Property Crime Unit of the City of London in the UK. We've done public enforcement actions with them. Moreover, Europol, a frequent, constant partner of us to enable us to pursue these bad actors more effectively. Now, third, I want to focus then on the industry groups, non-government associations, organizations, academia that we work with on these efforts, and a hackathon that occurred in November that is especially near and dear to me because of the the brilliant ideas from inventors that we brought together to see new and sort of innovative ways of attacking this problem set. So working with brands, there's a lot of different things we can do together. And I quote, WWE here. This is from a press release that was issued by WWE and Amazon CCU for our suit that we worked on together. We work hand in hand as early as possible in the life cycle of a case with a brand or brands as appropriate to get to the bottom of what happened with a given counterfeiter or a counterfeiting group. We, for instance, will work on test buys together, where we'll buy products and have them authenticated. The brands will file notices of infringement, right, to stake out their intellectual property, exchange information, right, with each other in pursuit of this civil matter, and ultimately file a civil suit in federal court or in state court. And likewise, as appropriate, we will make those criminal referrals together, where we again share information, combine our resources, our know-how, our contacts to find the right law enforcement agency for this matter, to investigate it and support it all the way through to conviction as appropriate. Now, our partner brands are wide and varied, and I take great pride in the variety of these brands. And these are brands that we've done public suits with. So public matters. And they're terrifically diverse here. You see smaller companies, JL Childress or Dutch Blitz, You see very large companies, General Electric, Procter & Gamble, 3M, Cartier, and so on. One of our recent suits was with a company called Felco. And so if you're a gardener, you may very well know that brand because they have a garden shear that they make, which is beloved by customers. And so all these different brands have worked with us in one shape or form in public matters. And I commend them for their partnership, their collaboration, and dedication to pursuing bad actors wherever we may find them. And I'm going to talk about a couple of our public suits in a moment. This one I like to show to give you a sense of sort of the high fidelity of some of these counterfeits that you may see. These are from pictures from our lawsuit. It was a suit filed in partnership with Ferragamo in 2021. And these are pictures from the product listing, right, on in the Amazon store, and compares a picture of the actual product that was sold versus the genuine product, as created by Ferragamo. And of course, the lighting is a little bit better, with the bottom picture, but there is a great deal of detail in these counterfeited products, and it's often not obvious to the layperson, to the naked eye. It takes an expert, at the brand by and large to authenticate these products. And so I'd like to start out showing you that to give you a sense of how complicated sometimes this can be to get to the bottom of what happened. Now, one of our earliest cases and one of our most novel cases was a suit filed in 2020 against social influencers, social media influencers. And I like to describe this case because there is a lot of very visual evidence and a novel sort of modus operandi for this kind of counterfeiting scheme. Now, it used what you could call a hidden link. I like to describe it more as a order this, get this. Okay, and the gist of it, as shown in these pictures from our suit, is that when you go to the product listing, right, you just would see a regular bag, right? You see right there on that product listing, it's sort of a black bag, leather bag. But if you ordered it, you would get the counterfeit. You would get the counterfeited good. Now, how would the customer know that they would get a counterfeited good? Well, they would know it because they would have that information by way of a social media influencer on their social media page, meaning that on that social media page, there will be some reference to a copy or to a counterfeit or some picture of this is what you can get, but go to this link to go find it. And the challenge there is that when you visit the Amazon site, if you're looking for bad actors, if you visit the Amazon store, I should say, you might not notice that there's anything necessarily amiss. So it's a great challenge to find this activity and to shut it down. Now, that's all to say that we're not just looking at standard counterfeiting, counterfeit goods sellers. We're looking also at what you would call a facilitator, right? Not just a social media influencer, someone that directs customers from their social media page to an Amazon listing where they can then buy a masqueraded, obfuscated counterfeit good. We're also looking to get the long-term impact to disrupt the counterfeiting networks. And that's to include supply chains, logistics, financial resources. So it's not enough just to stop the seller. You want to work your way up the chain. You want to take out the bad actors that help distribute it, people that help make it, right? The people that help finance it and who benefit monetarily, right, from this kind of activity. It's not just enough to stop the people who sell it. And this is a follow-on suit that our team worked on from this year, another social media influencer suit. This one involved a partnership in the suit with the brand Cartier. And as with the prior one, it was a social media influencer, this one on Instagram here. You see a picture from our suit on the top right of the screen. That social media influencer would direct the followers of that influencer to a listing on Amazon. And as you see, her page says high quality copy. Okay, high quality copy. Now the link that she would provide would send you though to what looked like a generic bracelet, right? If on the far left there, that's the product listing from our suit. I pulled right from it. There's no obvious mark on there. So to someone looking at that, you might not be any wiser about what that could actually be if you just happened upon the page. However, if you purchase that, you would get a counterfeit bracelet that would look much like what is in the picture on the bottom right, also from our suit. I pulled all these from it. And you see here, need the link, okay, DM you, right? That's how you get connected with the counterfeit product, is you would go through the influencer. Now, this is an interesting one. As I described to you earlier, when we do criminal referrals with a brand and law enforcement, that's not something we would necessarily announce because of law enforcement sensitivities. They need it to be covert or confidential or for some other, legitimate reason to not announce it when we provide that support. However, in some matters, when law enforcement gets to the point where they are comfortable announcing it, they will let us know. And in this case, you'll see here, they did make an announcement. And in this instance, it was from June of this year. It was by PIPCU, which is a City of London intellectual property police, a specialized unit that investigates and pursues this kind of criminality. So in this instance, as described, by their Twitter feed of all places, they posted the pictures from this raid. And so this raid resulted in the seizure of more than 32,000 counterfeit CDs in the UK. Now, those were estimated in loss to the music industry of about $207,000, about 170,000 British pounds. And this was the result of a referral that Amazon CCU submitted with what's called BPI. That's the British Phonographic Industry. They're sort of the association for the British music industry. And so working together with them, our team submitted that referral, which enabled law enforcement to then, begin their investigation and carry it through to execution. And as you see here, there's stacks and stacks of counterfeit CDs that were posted. Now, you saw earlier in my slide about WWE being a brand partner. And this is an interesting investigation and matter that we did because it resulted in both a criminal referral and a civil suit. And moreover, a criminal referral that resulted in criminal prosecution by law enforcement. So in this instance, these pictures, as they show you, taken from the suit, show the product sold by defendants, but then also the genuine product that's actually made and sold by WWE. And I'd like to show them because there is quite a level of detail that goes into these counterfeit products and the great expertise and know-how that it takes for the brand to spot these. Right, they are the expert as the rights holder for that authentication, for that confirmation of counterfeit. Now, this suit also was accompanied by a criminal referral, and I describe it as because it later resulted in criminal charges against two bad actors. The gist is that Amazon, working with WWE, as we announced, had submitted a referral to law enforcement in New Jersey. New Jersey law enforcement at a prosecutor's office in Middlesex County conducted their investigation and using the referred information from Amazon and the brand, and then ultimately conducted a search and arrested 2 individuals, also seizing a substantial number of counterfeit belts from those premises. And that case is pending. And so in this instance, because law enforcement had gotten to that point where they could go overt and in the investigation and be comfortable with acknowledging Amazon's and WWE's role in submitting a referral, we were able to reference it when we filed our suit. This is an example of the substantial work we do with investigators and law enforcement in China. Chinese law enforcement has conducted various enforcement actions based off of referrals that Amazon and partner brands submit, as do many other companies from all over the world submitting referrals. And in this instance, we announced in November 3 raids that were conducted based off of information intelligence provided by CCU to China law enforcement authorities. Now, that included locations of warehouses and manufacturing facilities that we, working with partners, had identified in China as being manufacturing and storage and distribution sites for counterfeit products. In total, across the 3 raids, more than 240,000 counterfeit items were seized. And that is drawn from those 3 raids. One of them for the counterfeit car accessories and labels. It was 130,000 of those. Almost 80,000 counterfeit luxury products, and more than 30,000 pieces of counterfeit clothing and fake brand labels. And those are just 3 examples of the enforcement actions that Amazon CCU's China team work on with partner brands and bring to law enforcement to execute on, to action. Now, this is something that's quite recent and I'm very proud of. And it's sort of that 3rd pillar of our partnerships, and one that I am very happy to be a part of and had involvement in, and really hope we can do more of these kinds of things. And it actually also touches on your center here, because your center was also involved as a partner on this, and that's actually how I met so many of you, and why I'm so happy you invited me to speak here today. It was a hackathon. And so it was called the Bring Down Counterfeiting Hackathon. It was a policy hackathon. And the gist of it was that, we were working with our partners, like your center, with, George Mason in general, with TRAC, with law enforcement, to get new, novel, innovative ideas for attacking the counterfeiting problem set. And we basically made an open invitation to teams to put together proposals, bring them to us, and then present, the finalists. I got to serve as a mentor and met, a number of them. Their ideas were fascinating, clever, and got to observe them in person when they came in to present at Homeland Security Investigations Innovation Lab in Arlington, Virginia, actually very close to our Amazon office. As you see here on the screen, these are some of the teams that presented their ideas and won. They won, prizes for their ideas, and very much hope that they, continue trying to iterate on those and build out, what they've conceived. You see Jim here on the bottom right of the screen is one of the presenters. These teams came up with clever ideas about, ways to authenticate goods in sort of a swift and credible manner, so that it's what could otherwise be very difficult for someone to determine about a good's provenance. It could be made more easy, more efficient, less expensive. Different tools for browser extensions so that customers can make use of those, and brands to determine something's authenticity. So all clever, innovative things, and I'm happy I got to serve as a mentor and to be a part of it. And I do hope we see more things like this. Now, this is our contact information. So our team has an outward-facing website, and that's there at the bottom. Brandservices.amazon.com/counterfeit crimes unit. That page for brand services actually will also show you the same tools that I described earlier, the proactive controls that are such a vital part of how Amazon keeps customers and brands and the general public safe from counterfeit goods and other abusive behavior that people might try to engage in the store. So brand registries in there, Project Zero, transparency, but CCU. And so we list what we work on. We believe in educating the public, educating customers, educating brands and law enforcement about what we're trying to accomplish and how we want to work with more law enforcement agencies and brands and associations. That's a vital mission of ours, is to create a united front and pursue these bad actors wherever we may find them, with whatever means we have at our disposal in the civil and criminal justice systems. You see there's our email address as well, counterfeitcrimes@amazon.com. That is an active email address that we monitor for outreach. And of course, our various team members spread across the world work with law enforcement and brands, the public, with associations all the time. So if there's anything you ever want to reach out to us about, please do. We're happy to connect you with the right people if we're not the ones that you need to speak with. We're always happy to provide that connection and to help you as well. I'm going to wrap up my slides there. I'm going to turn off the slides unless Jim would like me to leave them on while I answer any questions. Otherwise, I'll pull them off.